For our next discussion, we will welcome Lieutenant General Barry back to the stage for a fireside chat with Lieutenant General Gene Kirkland. This slightly less formal but always enlightening discussion will be moderated by Lieutenant Colonel Jason Callan. Lieutenant Colonel Jay Callan is the 76th Aircraft Maintenance Deputy Group Commander at Tinker Air Force Base. In this role, he leads operations in the Air Force's largest maintenance group consisting of 4,500 military and civilian personnel performing depot-level maintenance on B-1, B-52, KC-135, KC-46, E-3, and E-6 aircraft. Lieutenant General Donald E. Gene Kirkland is the Commander, Air Force Sustainment Center, Air Force Material Command, headquartered at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. As the Air Force Sustainment Center Commander, he leads 40,000 total force United States and United Kingdom airmen across 3 air logistics complexes, 3 air base wings, and 2 supply chain wings operating from a global network of 26 locations.
Well, good day, Log Nation. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jay Callan, the moderator for today's much anticipated A4 Fireside Chat. You have the opportunity to hear what's on the minds of the 2 most senior logisticians in our Air Force today and how they are working through multiple challenges that our logistics enterprise faces today. During this Fireside Chat, we will have opening comments from both Lieutenant General Barry and Lieutenant General Kirkland. Then I will have a few questions prepared for both, and then we will jump right into your questions. And speaking of questions, please go ahead and go into the chat and place your question in the box, and we'll make sure we go through as many as we can during this session. Then afterwards, we will go back to you on those we couldn't get to. Gentlemen, it is a pleasure having you with us today. We have many great topics to cover, so let's get it started. Lieutenant General Barry, you have the floor for opening comments.
Thanks, Jay, for agreeing to moderate today. Not many other people would have taken on that challenge, so thanks for doing that. And to Log Nation out there, I guess good morning, good afternoon, or in some cases even good evening, depending on where in the world you are today. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you find this session with General Kirkland and myself to be enlightening. Certainly no questions are off the table, and we look forward to having that dialogue with you as the session goes on. I'll try to keep my remarks brief starting the session today, but the initial comments for the low conference on log under attack. So I thought for this, what I would try to do is talk a little bit just about readiness. One of the other key pillars I think that we're all focused on as an Air Force and certainly as a Air Force logistics and sustainment enterprise. From a readiness perspective, I think what I would offer to you to start with is when we talk about readiness, certainly at the strategic or the enterprise level here in the Pentagon, I think one of the things we realize is that we have given you some challenges that you're dealing with at a more tactical level. And we are not unaware of that, right? We're doing all we can to try to mitigate some of those things that you're dealing with. And what are some of those things? Well, I'll offer you a few. One, we know that you have aging aircraft. You know, not everybody has gleaming F-35s fresh off the production line on their ramp. And so when you think about the aging aircraft that we do have, our fleet as a whole is about 30 years old. That's about twice as old as the Navy's fleet. It's about 2.5 times the age of the Royal Australian Air Forces, but just comparative examples. And we know that old fleet takes a lot of work. If you look over the past 20 years, your break rates have gone up about 34%. When you look at the non-mission capable time attributed to structural maintenance, which is one indicator of age, that NMC time has gone up about 38% in that same time frame. Our maintenance man hours, which is a direct reflection of the workload that does aging aircraft present to the workforce, have gone up across many of our fleets. So our fighter fleet has gone up about 22% in the last couple of decades, and the bomber fleet has more than doubled. And then, you know, you think about what it does to diminishing manufacturing sources and supply parts and things like that. And while our CAN rate has stayed pretty stable for the last 10 years, we also know that our COS code A's make up about 38% of our, sorry, about 32% of all of our requisitions in the supply chain. And those Cosco days, of course, are things that are first-time demand on a system or low-frequency demand on a system such that we don't really provision that part in our supply system. And all of that has an impact on you, right? It generates churn, and it generates a lot of challenges to you when it comes time to maintain readiness and generate sorties. And so, one of the things that we will look at, and I think many of you have heard the chief talk about it, is as we look at the fleets that we have in service today, we've got to look at those fleets not just from the standpoint of age, not just from the standpoint of costs in terms of both manpower and dollars, but also in terms of their relevance to the national defense strategy. And so I think you'll start to see us as an Air Force look at these aging aircraft through that lens as well, to make sure that we've got the right force structure for the future that the NDS fight demands. We also know that our maintenance manpower is not where we would want it to be. We brought 4,000 maintainers on, certainly the active duty roles. The Guard and Reserve still have some shortfalls, but we brought 4,000 maintainers on active duty to fill gaps that we had. So we are 100% manned, about 101% manned across the maintenance force. But 4,000 new maintainers means that you've got a very inexperienced force, and we know and understand that. So if I were going to go through the numbers, I would tell you that we got about 40% fewer maintainers today that have more than 14 years of experience in maintenance. And about 54% of our force has less than 6 years of touch time on our aircraft compared to what that was 38% in 1995. That's a stark difference. So our maintenance workforce is a lot less experienced than it was just 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And in fact, we have to acknowledge too that we have about 6,000, just north of 6,000 unfunded authorizations in the maintenance career field. Now that's part of a broader Air Force unfunded authorization challenge that we have, which gets up into about the 45,000 range, which is why we're looking at ways that we can become more efficient and more effective at the same time. And of course, all that maintenance manpower, right, affects your fixed rates, which have gone up over the last couple of decades, and it affects your ability to train. And so we know that that is certainly a readiness challenge for you at the flight line level. And then, of course, the last is resources. The good news in resources is that we largely fund the flying hour program to 100%. So whatever spares we forecast that we are going to need in support of the flying hours that we're going to fly, we are fully funding those through the flying hour program. But weapon system sustainment, on the other hand, doesn't have that luxury. And this year, we're at about 84% funding of the requirements, and we're going down through the fight up. We'll try to arrest that. We'll try to deal with that in the coming POM cycle. But it is a challenge for us as the resources continue to climb, partially because of aging aircraft, that we find ourselves challenging you with readiness because of some of the resourcing that we're not able to put to the aging fleets that we do have. Of course, that also affects our ability to do sustaining engineering, which is the reliability and maintainability lifeblood of getting our aircraft as healthy as we can, not just today, but out into the future to make those parts more reliable and more maintainable with the aircraft. So these are challenges, right? But I think the good news as well is that we've done quite a bit over the last year or so, 18 months, with that strategic framework, the sustainment strategic framework that you've heard through a couple of sessions through LOA already, to get after ways that we can build readiness at the tactical level. You've heard about theory of constraints, and I'll tell you, it is real. We took a page right out of the depot with Art of the Possible and brought it to the flight line, and it is having remarkable impact at Shaw, at Ellsworth, at Fairchild, and it is exportable. And we are going to export it to try to help all of you deal better with some of the readiness challenges that we are giving you. Repair network integration. We've increased the number of parts that we have in repair network integration, trying to drive repair to a level where there is capability and capacity and get those repairs done at a local level, which also helps us in an NDS fight. We have built resiliency into the supply chain, getting dual sources and more. And of course, the holy grail to me anyway is really launching conditions-based maintenance plus and predictive maintenance, and having the ability to turn unscheduled maintenance into scheduled maintenance, the ability for us to do that maintenance on the airplane at a time and place of our choosing based on what the data is telling us as parts are beginning to age out. All of this is pretty exciting. We didn't even touch on additive manufacturing, which we could as well. So just know that we understand some challenges that we put on your plate and are lying in your lap to generate the readiness that we need for our Air Force today. But we need to project that forward to the readiness that we need for tomorrow. And a lot of the initiatives that we're taking today are trying to aim just right at that. So with that, I'll stop talking. I'll turn the floor over to General Kirtland and see what he has to offer for his opening comments. And then we look forward to your questions.
All right. Good afternoon, Log Nation. Colonel Caitlin, thanks for moderating. General Barry, it's always a privilege to do things with my teammate and partner of these many years. Loa, thank you for allowing me to be part of this. It's quite an honor. It's my privilege to command the Air Force Sustainment Center and here at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma, with our enterprise literally across the CONUS and OCONUS as well. So the readiness challenges that General Barry mentioned, we live in that AOR as well. And those 55, 60-year-old airplanes, the aging fleets that you are keeping in shape on the fly line and doing so very well, periodically cycle back through our organic depots and are sustained by our organic supply chain management. I won't give an organizational briefing. We've had excellent sessions here in the virtual LOA by our ALC commanders and both our supply chain as well, both wholesale and retail. But I will add that how we do business here matters. The weapon system sustainment that General Barry mentioned, almost $8 billion of that business comes our way every year. And we are tasked with optimizing and maximizing every single nickel that comes our way to make sure we are spending it on the next highest priority. The last few years fiscally have given us some challenges. COVID didn't help. And as always, aircraft get older every day, to include the engines that power them. And so from the Sustainment Center point of view, some of the things that we're focused on will be recognizable to you. General Barry mentioned condition-based maintenance. We are all in and partner with the Lifecycle Management Center's Rapid Sustainment Office to quickly evolve and scale the use of CBM and predictive analytics across the fleet. From my chair, the challenge is how do we use that data, what we learn, to quickly improve supply chain forecasting so that we are buying the right things in the right quantities and apply that to our depot maintenance planning. This past year, our supply chain management wing, the 448th, stood up a dedicated condition-based maintenance plus cell specifically to tackle that challenge. On the advanced manufacturing front, I will highlight reverse engineering. We're now in our fourth year of very aggressive reverse engineering that when we talk about obsolescence of parts or just not available, if our mechanics crack open an aircraft, say of KC-135, and find a part that was never intended to be replaced ever, the blueprints literally don't exist with the OEM. We are very likely to be able to take that part, reverse engineer it, and then rapidly manufacture it using either advanced techniques or even old school as necessary. And so that is the culture that we are using with our Rapid Sustainment Office and blending that into our operation. Let me turn to two other things that I'm focusing on right now. The first is our Supply Chain Spending Authority. You may be feeling this in the field, and you are our focus, but I'll tell you that over the last 3 fiscal years, our spending authority and supply chain has been reduced by a combined $1.5 billion. There are reasons for that, but most of them were directed by our higher headquarters and reflected the fiscal environment in which we operate. And so working with our supported program offices, lead commands representing the field, we have spent the $6 billion that we spend in supply chain every year as effectively as we possibly can, optimizing that against your AA rates and against your sorting requirements. And I'll also mention our workforce. I'm proud to be part of a 40,000 member folks that work in AFSC. 70% of those are civilian. And while General Barry talked about maintenance manning mostly on the uniform side, let me talk about our career civilians who are turning wrenches in your depot supporting you. I looked this up recently, and our average age of our civilian employees is 44 and a half. and that actually is 3 years younger than the average civilian employee in the Air Force. And that trend actually is accelerating. We're proud of that. As a subset of that, our STEM workforce is even younger, but we're now at almost 5,000 STEM employees in our sustainment center and growing. And so obviously, as we need to recruit and retain science and engineering workforce, that becomes more of an issue with us. And we work that regionally with universities and state governments. I will stop there and invite your questions. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for the great opening comments. We're now going to move into the Q&A section of the session. First question, from an A4 perspective, how is Agile Combat Employment, ACE, being tested across the Air Force, and how will it accelerate our posture to support the high-end NDS fight?
I guess I'll grab that one first, General Kirkland. So I guess when I think about Agile Combat Employment today in the Air Force, right, I think we're kind of in an age of experimentation, and that's probably good, right? So we are doing a lot of things at wing level. We're doing a lot of things at a MAGCOM level to try to get after Agile Combat Employment and kind of put it through its paces and learn as much as we can about the concept, not just the concept of operations, but the concept of employment. And how we make it work. So I think that, age of experimentation is probably a good place for us to be right now. I'll also tell you that the MAGCOM DCOMs at the 3-star and 2-star level have kind of adopted this. And so they have put together some documents that are guiding the Agile Combat Employment universe right now, and where actions are going throughout the entire .mil PFP spectrum. They developed the AOICE, which is the Adaptive Operations in Contested Environments. That's kind of the game plan, the overarching CONOP for how we as an Air Force think about Agile Combat Employment. And then PACAF and USAFE under that have created their own annexes for how ACE will work in their respective theaters, because while there will be similarities, there will also be differences because the challenges are different between the two theaters. So we're doing a lot of those experiments and exercises, and those lessons learned are coming back, and they're reinforming the concept of operations and the appendices that PACAF and USAFE have developed. We're learning things about disconnected operations and the C2 of those disconnected operations. We're learning things about supply chain and a push versus a pull system and what that means to us. We've thought about how we do rapid distribution in a different way in an agile combat environment. We thought about multi-capable airmen. What is that definition? What are the skills that those airmen need to have in a multi-capable airman environment with ACE as a backdrop? We're rethinking forward posture, WRM in a whole different way. I think the chief talked about that a little bit in his speech. And certainly we're being innovative, right? Airmen out in the field are being innovative, like hot pitting a KC-135, which is not something that we've done before. So I think there's a lot of good experimentation. The next big muscle movement is in PACAF. They're going to do an exercise here in the very near future that will further inform the lessons learned. And then as we develop those lessons, all of that becomes capability gaps, right? That we start to understand where are the gaps in our ability to do this agile combat employment, and how do those gaps get resolved, either through policy changes, through materiel changes and funding in the POM and the like. So we're on a journey. And I think the more we experiment, the more we learn, and it more informs our policies, processes, and material investments to allow us to get to an answer here in the near future.
Okay. So from the Sustainment Center standpoint, I'll simply add, General Berry mentioned that the chief mentioned yesterday in his talk about the ACE and as an element of accelerate, change, or lose. We're focused in our 635th Supply Chain Operations Wing that owns both WRM, Prepo part there and our fuels, that the experimentation on the fuel side, I was briefed just Monday on some innovative bladders that might reside in the back of C-130s that would allow us to be very expeditionary to refuel multiple types of airplanes under the ACE construct. But more specifically to Prepo and WRM, we are working with the supportive warfighters to innovate and tailor those packages as to correlate with the theater's concept of operations as we might employ those forces. Thank you.
All right, thank you both for that perspective. I know the field has been asking a lot of questions about the ACE, and so an overview from the top is very, very appreciative. Second question, with the F-35 having the eye on Congress and recent media publications, what are we doing to enhance the F-35's operational readiness?
Hey Jay, yeah, I often say that there's rarely a day that goes by that I don't have some kind of F-35 conversation here in the Pentagon. So probably only appropriate that we get a question about it. I guess the first thing I would say is, we need to recognize that the F-35 is going to be the cornerstone of our fighter force, right? We've got more F-35s in service right now than we have F-22s. It's almost more than the A-10, almost the second most populous, if you will, weapon system that we're going to have in our Air Force and beyond. So it's going to be the cornerstone. It's 5th gen capabilities. It performs incredibly well. It's deployed to the AOR. It's achieved a 74% FMC rate in the AOR. It's flown over 4,000 sorties over in CENTCOM. And so, there are some good things happening on the F-35 program, make no mistake. But having said that, as you said, Congress and others, there are still some concerns as the program matures. We started to look at the F-35 through three lenses, right? One lens is capability, one lens is availability, and one lens is affordability. And that's kind of how we're getting after what we consider to be the challenges that are on the program right now as we try to bring it into full operational capability and have more and more bases come up online. From a capability perspective, not really an A4 sustainment thing, but it is, about the future mods we need for it to be relevant in that future national defense strategy kind of fight against a peer adversary. And those modifications have to happen for that aircraft to be as capable as it needs to be for that fight. Availability, there's still some nagging issues, a couple of new issues on the F-35 that do impact its availability to the warfighter. We've had canopies as a problem for a little bit now. It's kind of getting better. Eels have been a problem on the aircraft for a little while. That's getting better. And so, we're working through some of those things from an availability perspective. And of course, we're looking to transition Alice to Odin. And we think, the more we can get from an Alice perspective, authorities down to the local level that mirror how we do business on our legacy fleets, that's a good thing. To get more availability of the aircraft and therefore more readiness, but also the transition to Odin, we think will be a big leap forward as well. And the last one, which really is the one that Congress kind of looks at more than the other two for now anyway, is affordability. If you look at the cost per flying hour on the F-35, it is coming down. The challenge that we have is it's not coming down fast enough, right? It's not coming down fast enough to meet the affordability targets that we have for it to be in the volume that we would like it to be in for the Air Force. So we've got some work to do there. Part of that is a Lockheed Martin responsibility as the prime contractor. Some of that is an Air Force responsibility. Both sides have a role to play in that. But one affects the other. It's not necessarily an either or. So from our perspective, the fuel that the aircraft drinks is the fuel it drinks because of its design. The maintainability of the aircraft is the maintainability of the aircraft because of the way it's designed. So there are some things that are inherent there that we have to live with on the system as well. But make no mistake, there's a lot of energy and a lot of attention on the F-35 in those three buckets to make sure that we're paying attention to the weapon system to make it as ready as it can be for the missions that it needs to fly both today and into the future.
So from Sustainment Center, I'll echo Lieutenant General Berry. I think I'll just share with you that 70% of the F-35's costs are related to sustainment. And so that's a call to action to partner with the Joint Program Office to drive down sustainment costs to as much as possible. Within the Sustainment Center, we do that. We have our hands in that in several ways. The workloads assigned to us, I'll begin with the air vehicle. We're doing modifications on those at our Ogden Air Logistics Complex line right now This year, in fact, we're going to increase our output from 47 to 52. So that is a growing workload. There's about 65 or 66 commodities, think LRUs and other parts that for which we are now the source of repair. We're growing that workload with our OEMs, mostly Lockheed Martin and BAE. Those activations, there's about 36 of those that are actively running right now, and that workload is coming in. And as with all things Sustainment Center, we're focused on the cost effectiveness of that operation. And I think we're absolutely have a success story there. We're also responsible for the F-135 engine. We have the only heavy maintenance center in the DoD enterprise is here at Tinker Air Force Base, a critical node in supporting this weapon system. And in fact, the subject of a MAJCOM commanders plural summit here at Tinker tomorrow, and General Barry will be here. We're looking forward to that. And I'll add as well that we are part of that Alice to Odin journey. The 309 Software Engineering Group at Ogden will be front and center in the U.S. government-led transition from Alice to Odin, working with our customers. And we are ramping up for that both right now with both people and facilities to deliver a product that will be an improvement over the current situation. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Great overview of the F-35 program and what's going on for us in the Air Force. So good overview. Thank you both for that. Question number 3. As we enter the age of great power competition and move away from the wars of the past, what are some key sustainment and mission generation areas that keep you up at night as it relates to possible conflicts with near peer or peer adversaries?
Joe Kirkland, you want me to go first?
Sure not. This assumes that we sleep at night.
I was just going to say. All right, so let me rattle a few off that concern me as we think about great power competition. I get concerned about the industrial base, right? Less so the organic industrial base, more the commercial industrial base, because what we find, certainly when we do repair actions on our aircraft for spare parts, that the overwhelming majority are sole source and single source vendors. And so, they're going to scale and scope their business to the business model that's in front of them, which is the demand signal that we're giving them in what is largely a peacetime flying hour program with some OCO hours from CENTCOM. So when I think about that peer competition and the scale and scope of operations, I get really worried that sole and single source vendors are not only a single point of failure, but also may not be able to ramp up to meet the pace and scale of operations that we would need. I worry that maybe worry is too strong a word. I hope I highly desire that we will have the predictive algorithms in place sooner rather than later, so that we can truly do so much more scheduled maintenance versus unscheduled maintenance, and have that then trickle over into a predictive supply chain, right? And predictive supply analytics, so that I can actually do a push system when I'm integrated ops and don't have the comm links and lines that I would like to have to the forward forces. I need to have kind of what we talked about in the keynote with persistent logistics. We need a logistics common operating picture that gives us the information, the sense of what's happening in the forward area at the speed of relevance, so that we can make decisions that aid the warfighter and not limit the warfighter. That common operating picture is absolutely huge. And then I guess the last one I would say, again, relating back to the persistent logistics speech, is not only do we have to get the sense right in terms of the logistics common operating picture, we've got to get posture right. The chief talked a little bit about it in his speech, but there's more to it than just that. And so if we don't get posture right, then that just starts to bound and limit what we can respond to with adversary actions, be they kinetic or non-kinetic. So those are the 4 I think that I kind of pay the most attention to when I think about that future fight. I would probably put rapid distribution in there as well, if I had a 5th one to put in. But those are the ones I think that occupy most of my bandwidth when I think about that future fight and an NDS peer adversary.
Much of what General Barry mentioned had to do with, asset visibility and common operating picture. We are one other node in that ecosystem. I could throw a lot of numbers at you that start with billions of the workload we're doing, and it's a number, but even a large amount of money runs out at some point, and so we are tasked with optimizing those purchases. I don't want to buy 6 of something if we only need 5, because I can spend that dollar somewhere else. On single source, I want to echo General Barry. Legacy weapon systems remain a challenge, particularly as we bring on 5th gen and beyond capabilities. It's a bit of a dichotomy, and yet it's still the same business of depot and supply chain management. I would focus single source concerns that keep me up in the realm of engines. Very often here at Tinker, our Oklahoma City depot does a dozen or so engine lines for legacy engines, and they do it very, very well. But in some cases, we're the last people around working those engines. You can only live off of spare parts from the boneyard for so long that you run out of this or that fan blade or compressor that we're going to need to keep that engine serviceable. Again, our workforce is world-class. We do this very well, but every day those engines, those airframes get older. And so the engineering and the supply business of it matters, and we need to be good at it. I would add to that, readiness spares packages are something that's on my mind right now. Making sure that, again, optimizing every dollar, that we're putting the right quantities in the right places based upon what the scenario would call for, and the geography and the lines of communication between the depot or the commercial provider and where it needs to be. General Barry and I are working something kind of offline that asks the question, do we need a standard days of supply? Is it one size fit all? Or should we tailor it to theaters and MDSs and the expected U rates? Colonel Kalen, I'll stop there. That's what keeps me up. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot on both your minds. A lot of it I'm experiencing myself as a deputy aircraft maintenance group at Tinker when it comes to sole source and parts issues. So I can kind of relate a little bit there. Okay, next question. How is the Air Force investing in depot infrastructure within the Air Force logistics complexes?
Well, I guess I'll take that one here in the Sustainment Center. I'll say first that what's new for us is the last year and a half, we have an actual deliberate plan that maps out the organic industrial base strategy over the next 20 years. It was tasked by Congress 2 NDAAs ago, and I'm proud to say the Air Force is leading the way in kind of figuring out the workloads over the next 20 years, forecasting those with our supported program offices, and converting that into expansion, but more importantly, the optimization of our future depot. I want to be clear, our depots today and in the future will continue to do world-class maintenance on legacy and advanced weapon systems. At the same time, we recognize that to stay relevant and cost-effective, we need to make smart decisions. And so we've laid out really a 3-phase strategy that loosely aligns around keep up, catch up, and leap ahead over those 20 years. Now, here's the good news. Based upon our required 6% capital investment program reinvestment combined with MILCON, we are already using our 6% investment to meet the keep up and a down payment on the catch up. And so rest assured, your depots are modernizing with the funds we have available. To go much beyond that, though, will require informed choices and prioritization to optimize as we bring in modular hangars that could take airplanes for the next, say, 50, 60 years, combine disparate buildings into unified campuses. Look ahead at our software business, because this is a growth industry. We have about 4,600 people doing software engineering right now, and that's growing, expected to grow 100 or 108%, I believe, over the next 15 to 20 years. In general, our strategies are aligned around that, as we also just work to keep our infrastructure relevant and modern as we bring on things like the KC-46 depot, B-21 in the future, T-7, and the like. I'll pause there. Thank you.
Yes, sir. General Barry, anything to add to that one?
No, I think General Kirtland hit it perfectly. We'll let that one stand. He did a great job.
Yes, sir. All right. Next question. The Air Force has seen success with CBM Plus, additive manufacturing, and other innovative initiatives. How has innovation and the AFSC's partnership with RSO enhanced readiness and mission generation?
Hey, Warren, I can go first if you want. So I hit this in my opening statement that Air Force Lifecycle Management Center has the Rapid Sustainment Office embedded. General Morris is also the PEO for RSO. So Air Force Materiel Command is all in on the RSO. From the Sustainment Center standpoint, I'm interested less about the things that are on the horizon and more about the things that are mature or near mature technologies that we can grab right now and rapidly scale inside of our depots to make us most cost effective. The good news is that those same technologies may also find their way to the field, so we can get to General Barry's printing. Help me here, General Barry, but parts in 3, printing in 3, install. That is our near-term future. Between sensor-based algorithms and enhanced reliability center maintenance, we're already well into this as an Air Force. I looked it up this week, and from the time we installed the first sensors on C5s and B1s only 3 years ago, in 2018, we've now got over 3,100 aircraft today are out there being actively monitored, and we've had almost 300 alerts from our sensor-based algorithms that did convert that unscheduled maintenance into scheduled maintenance. The challenge on the sustainment side, I believe, will be getting the right stock levels to compensate for the new predictive analytics environment. But all that data will only make us better, and the depot procedures to test or repair a part which we pulled before it broke. And while that sounds trivial and a good problem to have, it nevertheless is a concern that we're working through on how to do that at the depot level. I'm sure General Barry can make this much better.
No, General Kirkland, I think you did a lot of points that I was going to hit as well. So I think that's awesome. I would say, we got 16 MDSs right now that are in predictive maintenance. Be it in the sensor-based algorithms that General Kirkland talked about or enhanced reliability-centered maintenance. We're changing parts today ahead of failure. We've done hundreds and hundreds already, and we'll continue to do more. So the challenge for us right now on predictive maintenance is scaling up. And so that takes money, and that's a resource issue that we have to work here in the Pentagon to make sure that we're putting the resources against that initiative so that we can get the returns that we know are out there. There are case studies out there that tell us that this is the game changer. So we are actively, energetically pursuing more in the realm of predictive maintenance. From additive manufacturing, I guess the only other thing I would say on additive manufacturing is, much like we have a repair network, I think what you'll see is we'll develop a manufacturing network. At least until the technology advances a lot more down the road, because there's some parts that really are not going to be produced at a tactical location. Some can, some can't. And so we're going to be pretty smart about how we authorize the machines that the field level has versus the machines that a depot needs, and the type of work that each does while we mature the technology. It too is another kind of a game changer, particularly in forward deployed locations, if you can get the machine small enough, and if you work the supply chain that the additive manufacturing network would need. Those are all really great things to look for in the future, and that's part of our plan moving forward. But we need to develop that manufacturing network in additive manufacturing. So, we're making the best use of the resources we have, and have a mind toward the complexity of the parts that we're printing, and the foundry equivalent, if you will, that we would need as we produce those parts. But it's got great potential for us.
All right, well, thank you both. Great insights there on helping out the mission generation. So I'm going to move over to the live Q&A chat area. And I have first question I have came in from Colonel Benton. What are you tracking as the greatest challenges we'll face as we transition from Minuteman 3 to GBSD?
Well, I think the big challenge that we're focused on from an A4 community is the facility piece of making the transition. It's going to be a monumental effort. When you think about the pace and the scope of how many silos that you will need as you swap out Minuteman 3 for GBSD, it's a significant lift. We're going to Congress to try to get different ways to get after it, different authorities that we think the Congress can give us to make that happen and to make that possible. But that is a huge part of that transition from Minuteman 3 to GBSD. I'll also say that, a lot of what we've done on GBSD with a lot of design engineering and digital engineering has made remarkable inroads from a sustainability and a maintainability of the weapon system. GBSD is not going to be the same maintenance concept as Minuteman 3, and it's going to be, less intensive, less manpower intensive as that system gets fielded. And so we were able to really take advantage of a lot of the digital engineering things that you hear about on that program to make sure GBSD was going to be even better in the field from a maintainability perspective than certainly Minuteman 3 is today. So it's pretty exciting. But to me, the single most important thing for me as an A4 looking at it is that facility transition and getting the silos and the launch centers upgraded and built, if you will, to handle the GBSD.
So General Berry's exactly right, and I would add to that the challenge of sustaining the last Minuteman 3 missile on alert until it comes off alert. We already are challenged with aging weapon system issues, plus the infrastructure. And as we turn the focus to GBSD as an enterprise and as a nation, we simply cannot look away from the current Minuteman 3 weapon system. As with any other weapon system, certainly fixed wing, I think our commercial sources of repair are going to be motivated to go elsewhere. And so Colonel Benton, actually, a great question, but I think you're front line on making sure that we communicate our needs to industry and continue to stay focused on that. To General Berry's point about digital design, I would add only that I think the GBSD program office is Exhibit A of doing it the right way. I've watched them bake in all the sustainability goodness as they've acquired this weapon system. Colonel Bartolome and team out there have done a wonderful job to include partnering with our organic software developers and getting in very early so that software sustainment, we will have access to the IP and be able to make more cost-effective sustainment of that software as the weapon system fields and goes forward. Thanks.
All right. Next question coming in from Captain Michael Ingram. The cost of raw materials, oil, lumber, metals, precious metals, has been on the rise. Are we concerned about future buying power due to raw material cost increases?
Hey, so Warren, I'll jump on this first, I guess. The answer is absolutely yes. And more topical, we are seeing that based on COVID and the last year's challenges, that on average, raw materials that feed our supply chain have increased by 3% in cost. And so that is beyond the normal inflationary forces that we've seen to date. And so that will raise the cost of our supply chain by a commensurate amount.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking about supply chain risk, right? So The cost, even if we're not buying the raw material, if that raw material goes into the part that we're procuring, clearly it has an impact to us. So yeah, absolutely, we do pay attention to it. The other thing I would say is there are some of those raw materials that we stockpile, and we do that for a reason, right? To make sure that those elements, those materials, are available to us when needed, particularly in a crisis. And so we will continue to do that. And some of that is influenced by prices and market, but some of it is influenced by who the producer is, if you will, and where we get it from. But absolutely, we pay attention to that. And by the way, Captain Ingram works for me, and I'm glad that he asked a question to General Kirkland.
All right, next up, this is in from Colonel Dr. Ariel Dvorzhetsky. How is international collaboration supporting the A4 and the AFSC to leverage logistics innovation, and what is the perspective on that arena for the coming years with allies nations?
So Gene, I'll take first crack at it and let you chime in. So I think certainly from a standpoint of when we think of agile combat employment and tactics, techniques, and procedures that we would use, there are some other countries that have been doing this, right? We learned from Australia, for example, on a lot of those methods that they have employed and that have worked very well for them, and a chance for us to kind of see how that works for them at the scale they have, and then try to understand how that would work for us at the scale we have. It kind of gives us a little bit of a an incubator and a little insight into how things work, and how we would then have to necessarily scale it. So we do learn from our partners in that way. Clearly, we rely on our partners for cross-servicing, for part support, for all those things that go into AXA agreements and international agreements that we have country to country, and certainly military to military. And so there are plenty of countries in both the European theater and the Indo-PACOM theater with whom we have agreements and arrangements, and we rely on them as they will rely on us if and when the time and the need comes to support each other in that kind of a scenario or that kind of NDS fight. John Kirkland, do you have anything to add to that?
Very quickly. So I just don't want to overlook old school interoperability and common systems. Axes, as General Barry mentioned, those go a long way to stretching our readiness capability. I'm proud that here in the Sustainment Center we actually have a group captain from the Royal Air Force who is a great conduit back to the United Kingdom, and my counterpart there, who happens to be a vice admiral in the Royal Navy. And in fact, he and I work a range of issues right now on Common Front, leading with software. We're looking at how to do joint development of software as part of our enterprise. But in terms of tangible efforts right now, we're, as commander, what my focus is on is through the supported theaters, is working those in-country storage locations and support contracts that would enable a pre-positioning and WRM strategy to support Chief Brown's vision for ACE and similar constructs. Over.
All right, next up in the chat is from Preston Pluis. How can industry help solve supply and sustainment problems? And what do you need from us right now?
So I'll answer from Sustainment Center first. First, we are blessed to be partners with any number of commercial industry teammates, largely executed through public-private partnerships where we are turning wrenches in depots in a joint fashion. We maintain everything from engines to aircraft to specific parts in that manner. And it is often a win-win for both the commercial industry partner and our Sustainment Center enterprise. Very often we're able to get access to newer technologies, bring them into our depots, and in turn, the commercial partner gets access to a world-class workforce. And again, it works very well for cost effectiveness. As to what we need, I believe that we have any number of examples of us doing it well. And where it works well, we have a transparent relationship fixed on common goals. And that common goal, while we get readiness and the commercial partner who has shareholders gets value, the reality is that we're advancing the priorities of the Department of Defense and our readiness concerns.
Hey, thanks, General Kirkland. So I guess I would add that, from an industry perspective, I think sometimes we get pretty prescriptive in what we want from industry, right? We'll tell you, this widget, this size, this weight, this performance characteristic, et cetera. And I think, there's some merit to us stepping away from that a little bit and maybe coming to the industry and saying, all right, tell you what, here's our problem, right? My problem is I'm too heavy. My problem is my equipment is too unique. I need equipment that I can get in and out of a location that has multi-use, right, more quickly. And I think what we would really benefit from with industry is to sit down and just present to you the challenges that we have, and then through the course of dialogue, try to understand what are some of the things that are available out there that we may not know, right? Not on our scope from a standpoint of what's on the horizon, but technologies that are out there that we could then leverage to help us solve our problem. And so rather than kind of giving you the answer of, the blueprint of here's what we need, go build it, really have more of a conversation of here's the challenges that face us. What are some solutions that you see in the realm of possible that we could capitalize on? I think those are kind of the more helpful conversations that we could have with industry that would result in probably a lot more bang for the buck for both of us.
Great, thank you for that good perspective. I think we're going to have time for one more question, and so we can have time for closing comments. So here's one came in from Greg. The logistics IT systems complex is and has been substantial. What are the current capability shortfalls in log IT systems capability that you're placing top priority on resolving?
Well, I'll answer from certainly the A4 portfolio first, and then I'll turn it over to General Kirkland, and he might be able to put it in the perspective of the sustainment center and the depots and the ALCs. We have too many IT systems in log. We've been going through a methodical process to rationalize them down, sunset old IT systems as we can get others to absorb that functionality and continue to knock down the number of systems that we have. We have shut down, I believe the last count I saw was almost 200 of our IT systems, but we still have hundreds to go. But that is absolutely crucial for us, right? I don't need 17 inventory control systems. I really don't. And those are kinds of the things that we're looking at as we rationalize through IT. The other thing that we need the IT, and this gets back to the predictive element. We don't lack for data. Our Air Force doesn't lack for logistics or sustainment data. What we lack is the ability to get that data in a way that is usable to us. How do I ingest, analyze, understand all the data that's available to me in a way that helps me make decisions at the speed of relevance? So from an IT perspective, that is the big capability gap. We do have some initiatives underway. Blade is but one that we have that will help us get into a decision environment where it'll be able to take multiple aspects of our data, fuse it together, use algorithms to help us have a person on the loop, not a person in the loop, that can help us make some really smart decisions at the speed of relevance in a fight. So to me, that's the key, to continue to rationalize these down so we have a number of systems that is certainly more manageable, and then get to a place where all that data available to everyone all at the same time with the tools on top of it that allow me to ingest, analyze, and act.
So from Sustainment Center, I'll just say that I'm genetically impatient to take the journey that General Berry just laid out. We cannot get there fast enough to have the tools and the business intelligence that make our supply chain forecasters as informed as possible, and to support our mechanics across the Sustainment Center to make them as effective as possible. And so these are righteous goals, and I appreciate all that headquarters air staff is doing, as well as the log IT folks at headquarters AFMC. I'll just add that as we take this journey, that our software enterprise is involved with this to try to move it forward. And in many cases, there are organic solutions to these IT problems. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, well, we're getting close to the hour, so we'll go ahead and go into closing comments. There were a couple of questions that came in that we won't get to, but just for those that asked those, I promised at the beginning we will keep track of those, and we will definitely get back with you on those. So General Kirtland, I'll turn it over to you for closing comments.
Oh, thank you, Colonel Kalin. So I'll be quick. I know we're out of time. Quick, I want to revisit CBM Plus real quick. Both General Berry and I talked about this, but I'll just point out that we often benchmark ourselves to industry. And I want you to be proud of the journey your Air Force is on. The average commercial partner has taken a 10-year journey to really institute CBM Plus. And we're on that same journey, likely to accelerate. By next year, 22, these tools will be common processes. By 25, the predictive maintenance piece will be embedded in our program depot maintenance processes. Your Air Force Materiel Command is asking for $160 million to the corporate process to evolve CBM. That is a 4 or 5-fold increase to previous FIDEPs. And we'll see what survives into the president's budget, but we're getting at this. Second, COVID impacted us like it did everybody else, but I want you to know that when our workforce last spring was just like every rest of the Air Force, maybe hunkering down, we looked around and realized our Air Force was open for business, and therefore our depots and supply chain needed to be as well. And so these civilian people largely, we brought them back to work, and they started turning wrenches again. We developed all the mitigations we need to reduce but not eliminate the risk. And I am very, very proud of my teammates and proud to be their commander. And I'll close by saying that if you're on the flight line or in the missile silo or out in the field in any way, you could be out driving an R9 with fuel. That your Sustainment Center, we have you in mind when we do our jobs. It is the field we think about and how we support. We have finite resources, but we stretch them as far as possible to provide you mission effective tools and parts for you to accomplish your mission in the flight line. Thank you very much, Loa and General Berry and Colonel Kalin, for being part of this. And it's been a wonderful opportunity. And I'll be happy to take any questions offline. You can find me in the Global.
All right, General Berry.
Thanks, Jay. So usually at the end of a forum like this, I'll try to, kind of circle back and hit some of the key themes or re-emphasize a point that maybe we made early on in the talk. I'm not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to choose to embarrass the gentleman who was on this call with us, Lieutenant General Kirkland. For those of you who don't know, he announced his retirement. The Air Force announced his retirement about 2 weeks ago. And General Kirkland this summer will be leaving active duty service with over 3 decades of serving our Air Force, its mission, and our airmen. And I can't tell you, I could not have asked for a better partner for the last 3 years as he and I have navigated many of the challenges that have faced this sustainment and logistics enterprise. He has led the Sustainment Center just exquisitely. He has set them up for future success that will water people's eyes, and whoever his replacement is going to inherit an organization that is well-oiled, well-functioning, and doing what our national command authority needs it to do to produce readiness for the United States Air Force. So an amazing partner, a great leader. Our Air Force will miss him And if you get a chance to send General Kirkland a note, please do so, and wish him well as he closes this chapter of his life. And he and Judy start a new chapter doing something other than wearing this uniform. But I know it is a uniform that he loves dearly and an Air Force mission that he has performed magnificently. So with that, General Kirkland, thank you for your service. We all salute you. And thanks to everybody for tuning in today and being part of this little fireside chat. Appreciate it. Jay, back to you.
All right, sir. I wholeheartedly agree, General Kirtland. Thank you for everything. This on a personal side as well. But thank you both for an incredible hour. Gosh, it went by really fast. Great discussion, great perspective. We really, really, truly appreciate both of you today. And with that, we will close out the chat.